What's up, my healthy friends? It's me, it's you, it's Faraz, and it's another episode of this show which keeps you growing. So, a big thank you for being here. And I'm very grateful for the fact that this show has been continually growing over the years. And you are the reason for that. So, thank you so much for being here. And in 2023, it's my mission to coach 500 people to stop the binge eating and savage self talk cycle so they can lose weight whilst feeling in control and without restriction along the way. So I want you to meet Faraz Khan, who has switched things up with his career because he's a former computer scientist. And you might be thinking, why have we got a computer scientist on the How to Not Get Sick and Die podcast? But he has totally turned things around in his career and is now a longevity educator, speaker, and biohacker that turned from helping large media, life science, and pharma companies to helping everyday people like you and me to beat back the source of aging. And so he has a podcast where he basically introduces people to anti-aging hacks and different ways to improve your life, and particularly hair as well. And because, well, you know, who doesn't want to make sure that they have a full head of hair and stop aging? We all want that. And so he's the founder of Fully Vital, a company that specializes in hair wellness using natural products. And he has his own journey in that world as well, which I'm sure we'll get into today as well. And he was recommended by some trusted friends. So Danielle Hamilton, who no doubt you've heard on the show before, and Karen Martell as well. So I'm glad that you're here for us. How you doing?
Thank you, Maddie. I'm so glad to be here.
So just as we touched on in the intro there, computer scientist to longevity educator, what was going on in your world? Because when I think of, you know, like a computer scientist as a health professional, I think generally can of Red Bull, loves gaming, you know, possibly overweight, lots of Uber Eats. Like, what happened in your life in order for you to switch over to a focus on health?
Totally. That's a great question. And I did do many nights when I was working all night, coding software programs all night. That was after I finished college. And it was good. Like, so my health journey actually started when I was 20 or 21. I just didn't realize it back then. I was on the college soccer team, and I thought I was hot shit. But
you were, bro.
Nature had,
You were, bro.
Nature had other plans for me. And one day I was shampooing my hair, and I looked down on my hands, and it's full of my beautiful hair. And I had a freak out moment, Maddie. And I said, oh my God, this is not happening to me. I cannot lose my hair. I am not losing my hair. It is everything I've got in terms of identity, right? And so that took me on a journey of trying to stop it. I tried a lot of things. I tried herbal oils, from Ayurvedic oils, the holistic oils, which made my hair stink and the whole place, the bathroom stink and my bedroom stink. I tried biotin, I tried shampoos, you name it. I tried a bunch of things to slow down and stop my hair loss. A bunch of these did actually slow down my loss, but didn't stop it. All the while I was going to college for engineering and then computer science. So that added to the stress, which led to more hair loss over the years. And after college, I got a job as a computer scientist. I was working a lot. There were periods where there was a lot of stress. And I had resorted to, because my hair was continuing to fall out, I'd resorted to shaving my head every 8 months, because somebody had told me, I think it was my mother or my grandma, that when you shave your hair, it comes back coarser and stronger and thicker. And I said, maybe that will solve it. And that wasn't solving it. But there was a last effort, right? I would shave on Friday evenings so that by Monday morning, I'd have a little bit of stubble before I went back to work, so it wouldn't look so weird. So anyway, this was like me losing my confidence over the years, right?
How old were you when that was going on?
This was between 23 to 27. I was shaving. Wow. Yeah. And at 27 years old, I decided that I saw the end of the road, which was I was going to go bald. And I said, I got to do something about this. So out of sheer desperation, I started calling the hair transplant surgeons in the town I lived in, which was Denver at the time. And I went to go see a beautiful or a great lady surgeon. And she said to me, you're not ready for a transplant yet. There's a lot of hair hasn't fallen out of one area, but I have a pill that can help you stop your hair loss. I said, what are you talking about? Give it to me. So, and then she said, well, there are some downsides to it. Down there, you could have some complications, loss of libido, maybe not wanting to have sex or whatnot. And I was like, whoa, this is too much. I can't do this. So I turned her down, went back home. But a week later, after lots of hair on my pillow. I said, fine, just give it to me. I'll take it. And so I took that for 10 years. And then when I was starting my podcast a few years ago, Maddie, I just wanted to go in a new direction with my life. There was more passion around health and wellness. And I decided to switch out of computer science and what I was doing back at the time into the wellness field. And at that time, I decided, my biggest insecurity in life so far has been my hair loss.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that can be done to stop it? If there is, now I have a podcast, I have access to experts. What can I learn? So I was Googling international hair loss conferences and I found one in Thailand. I was in Los Angeles at the time and it was 5 days later. And I said, you know what? I got to go. So I booked my flight, flew to Thailand, spent 5 days, didn't go out, I'd be there at the conference center at 7 a.m. and they didn't even open till 9. They're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm waiting. I'm waiting to learn. Super nerdy. But I spent that time, developed a lot of relationships with hair transplant surgeons and stem cell experts and people that have been doing hair for 20 years. And then when I came back to the States, I went and visited all of them, or at least the United States based ones. Went to their offices. We recorded podcasts like we're doing now. But also they took me behind the scenes. They showed me transplants that were going on. They showed me PRP injections. They showed me a lot of stuff that you wouldn't get to see normally if you were just a patient. And so that was the basis of how I learned about hair. But I still wasn't clear if there was a natural way of helping slow down hair loss or even regrow your hair. And that was another year of research. And after reading all these scientific papers and talking to all these doctors, I realized that there is a way, but you've got to stimulate your follicles in many, many ways. That was the big aha moment for me. If you can stimulate follicles from the inside, from the outside, using multiple tools, then you have a shot at regrowing your hair and fighting off the hair thinning that's going on. And so we came up with, out of that research phase, we came up with 4 different products that work together in tandem to boost your hair wellness from the inside and the outside and get you the hair. And so fast forward a little bit later, now we have a company. We've been in business for 2 years. We're helping thousands of customers with their hair wellness, hair growth journeys. And I'm super proud and excited to be here.
Yeah, what a journey. What a journey. And I know like the reason that you and I got connected is because, as I mentioned in the intro, like Danielle Hamilton and Karen, I heard them talk about it to me in private about their benefits of their hair growth, and they sent photos to our group chats. And they were like, "You've got to hang out with Faraz. Like, he's got this amazing product, and it really works." And I was seeing their photos as well. I'm very lucky myself. I have thick hair that has no issue growing. But yeah, I know that lots of men and women do based on the diet world, because we see a lot of people go on different types of diets, either in response to trying to get their hair to come back, or the diet that they've chosen causes their hair thinning or causes hair to fall out. And so I guess that leads me curiously, as the nutritionist in me, is what's going on in the body nutritionally, or from a depletion standpoint or a deficiency standpoint, that leads to somebody losing their hair or it thinning.
Yeah, totally. The number one reason for hair thinning in both men and women, by the way, Maddie, you have great hair. I'm jealous.
Thank you.
I'm sure a lot of men would be, and women also, that have that problem. But perfect hair. And so the number one reason for thinning in both men and women is because it's a hormonal problem. And what happens is the testosterone in a man or a woman's body gets converted to a metabolite called dihydrotestosterone, or DHT. And DHT is what goes and attaches itself to the hair follicles and it does 2 things. One, it thins the hair follicles. So nice, thick, healthy hair starts to get thinner and thinner and weaker and wispier as time goes on. And after a while, it's so thin and so weak that it can't even shoot out of your scalp. That's number one. The other thing DHT does to your scalp is it reduces the time your hair is in the hair growth phase and increases the time that it's resting, meaning it's not even in your scalp. And so both of those make it appear that you have less hair than you do. And over time, if you don't do anything about the DHT, you will completely lose the hair follicle, which is why men go bald, completely bald, shiny bald. That's the DHT in progress. Now, real quick, how can you tell if you've got hormonal hair loss? Because this is the most common hair loss. Customer of mine called me, or before she was a customer, and she said, "Hey, I think I have hormonal thinning. I'm about 48, which is right around leading up to menopause. And so hormones start changing in women around the age of 35 with estrogen and progesterone going down. which leads to a relative imbalance with testosterone. Not that testosterone is going up, but it maybe falls a little bit lesser than the other two. And so it leads to a relative imbalance, and that testosterone can convert to DHT. So this customer, before she was a customer, called me, and so she was going through menopause. And I asked her, how long have you been thinning? And she goes, it's been steady for many years, which is typically for hormonal hair loss. And so what I asked her to do is, when she was taking a shower next time, just whatever hairs were in her hand, I asked her to stick them on the tiles and then compare the hairs, right? You can see if some are thicker and some are thinner, because with the hormonal hair loss, you'll have different widths or different diameters of your hair. And sure enough, she called me in 2 weeks. She said, yeah, I've done this 3 times and I see that some hairs are thinner. I said, okay, that's also a telltale sign that you have hormonal hair loss. And so we helped her with her products, and in 3 months, she was able to grow and start the thickening process again. So that's number one. That's the main reason most people lose hair, and especially women that are over 35 or in their 40s are at a higher risk because the hormones are changing, right?
Yeah. Can I just ask quickly,
Yeah.
like what leads to the conversion into the DHT, and how do you reduce that or increase that, or like what are the impacts that lead to that DHT conversion from testosterone?
Totally. There's 2 enzymes that are in your body, that are in everybody's body, that naturally convert it to DHT. It's called alpha reductase 1 and alpha reductase 2. These are the 2 enzymes that lead to that testosterone to DHT pathway. Now, there's been a lot of research, hundreds and hundreds of scientific papers, well known in the scientific community with hair loss, is that there's pharmaceutical drugs that can reduce that conversion, either from one enzyme or both enzymes. And then there's the natural ways of reducing it, which I prefer the natural ways, because otherwise men can have sexual problems. And it's recommended women that are planning to get pregnant not take any of the pharmaceutical drugs, because they can mess with a male fetus in your body. And so natural is the way to go for me, and I'd prefer that for a lot of our clients. That's what we as a company stand for, as a natural way. And there's multiple ingredients in the natural world as well that have been shown to reduce the conversion, not completely block it, but reduce the conversion. Saw palmetto is one that I think many people, at least anybody researching hair loss, would be familiar with. So that's one of the most common ones. There's multiple other ones that we have in the supplement that we can talk about if you want.
Yeah, cool. So I guess my like you talked about the hormonal hair loss and comparing the hair length and thickness. What other types of hair loss are there?
Yeah, so one of the big ones that we see, and this happened with the virus that was going around in the world, is when you have a big shock to your body. That could be a surgery, it could be a breakup, it could be psychological or physical, right? Breakup, surgery, you're moving to a new place, a new city, a new country. You have had the virus, things of that nature. When you get that, then what happens is your body says, my goodness, something's going on. We're under attack. And so what it does is it pulls all the core nutrients away from the most expendable organ that we have, which is the hair follicle, and towards the core organs to protect you, to protect the organism from dying, right? And so it thinks it's dying. So it pulls all the resources in to your core organs and lets go of the hair follicles, basically stops feeding them. And what that does is it transfers a lot of the hair follicles from the hair growth phase, which they're in, into the resting and then the shedding phase. So 2 to 3 months after this happens, your hair starts falling out. That's how the hair cycle works. They typically fall out 3 months or 2 to 3 months after they've detached. And so, again, a friend of mine in Austin, she was experiencing this. She got the virus. 3 months later, her hair is coming out in lumps. Like she says she lost about 40 to 50% of her hair, which is traumatic, right?
Yeah.
And we met up for lunch, and I looked up and I said, how's it going? And I could see tears streaming down her face. And she didn't need to say a word because I understood exactly what she was going through. And I'd been through some of this before too. But it's literally, she said to me, I think I'm going to go bald because the pace at which my hair is coming out is unbelievable. But luckily, we were able to help her. She used her products for 4 months and her hair is coming back. In fact, I was walking behind her to an event and I was looking at her. She was a block in front of me and I'm looking at, who's that blonde with beautiful hair flowing in the wind? Guess what? It was her. And I go, wow, I would have never imagined, but she's happy now. So that's one of the other big reasons, Maddie, is a big shock, a big stress. And then coming back to the point you'd made about nutrition. And especially when people try to lose a lot of weight quickly, they go on the ketogenic diet or some other diet when they want to lose 20 pounds in 4 weeks or something like that, right? When you do something of a big change, again, a big diet change, you start a ketogenic diet or you go vegan or something like that, from a ketogenic diet standpoint, your body goes into shock because it's like, oh man, I don't have carbs anymore. Something's off. And so again, same thing happens. It starts to pull some of those resources in. When you lose a lot of weight, again, a big shock to the body because it's like, what's going on? I'm not at my set weight anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of those things, again, trigger a big shed. And if you're careful and you use the right techniques, this hair can come back.
Mm-hmm.
In some instances, it may not. So you've got to be careful. The last thing I'll say about the vegan diet is when, again, my friend called me from LA. She goes, hey, I'm losing my hair. I go, okay, what's going on? She goes, well, I've been stressed because my coworker left and I'm having to do her job. Okay, so you're more stressed. That can lead to hair thinning over time. But I said, what else has changed? She goes, oh, I'm vegan now. I was like, oh, okay, good to know. No judgment on the diet. You can eat whatever you want. But with veganism or the vegan diet, it puts you at risk for having low levels of folate, B12, and iron, all three of which are very, very important for hair. And so we helped manage her stress, but also my supplement contains all three of those ingredients. So we send that to her, and in 3 months she was doing fine, right? The hair loss has stopped. So this is going back to losing a ton of weight, and we talked about ketogenic diet, but also vegans. So I can talk about more reasons, but those are some of the ones you'd asked about.
Yeah, no, that's great. I've worked with loads of people that were vegan that had all sorts of other health issues as well, but hair thinning and hair falling out was absolutely one of them. And when we finally started introducing some red meat back into their diet, it's funny how quickly the body is like, oh, finally we're back to these nutrients. And I think, whilst you can choose whichever diet you like, some are more challenging to execute nutritionally than others. And so, like first month of a diet, you might be really excited and you go and buy all the right foods and get all the right supplements. And then a few months later, you're just like, oh, it's expensive and I can't be bothered. So I'll just, I'll get the most basic stuff. But unfortunately, on such a hyper restrictive diet or a diet that neglects entire food groups, you're at risk of that nutritional deficiency. So, and great to know, like as well, clearly that it's like the folate and the iron, the B12. I think they're really, it's good that we're really clear on what's missing, and I mean it makes total sense, right? Vegans don't have red meat. Red meat's going to have lots of the iron, lots of the B12, all of that kind of stuff. So the other thing I wanted to ask is, so with the stressful events, what's going on with the cortisol and the adrenaline? That does that drive the testosterone to DHT conversion? Is that what the high stress event does molecularly?
Yeah, totally. So it's really interesting because the scientific data, if I were to tell you that's the cortisol goes high, it leads to more testosterone, which leads to more DHT, I would be stretching it a little bit because science has not validated completely why stress, ongoing chronic stress. I'm not talking about a big stressor like a COVID or like, a breakup or surgery. I'm talking about ongoing chronic stress, why that has an impact on hair follicles. We know that it causes shedding over time. So every day you're going to find more hairs on your scalp. The good news about stress with a big stressor or even with ongoing stress, hair loss about this, is that these hairs will grow back if you can fix the underlying cause of this stress. If you can come back to baseline, if you can relax your body, if you can get into mindful practices, if you can take healthy adaptogens that help balance your cortisol and adrenals, then you can start to get all of that hair back. It's not going to be gone forever. So that's the good news. What they're finding now is that stress, we're finding this. We know this in the health world because stress will raise your cortisol levels. Cortisol disrupts almost every system in your body. Yeah. It's like havoc, right? You go into fight or flight mode in which literally systems of your body shut down. The reproductive system shuts down because it's not important for procreation right now. You're running from a tiger, and we're running from a tiger all day long. So again, going back to what's expendable while I'm running from a tiger, well, the hair, it doesn't really matter because one, hair is not important for survival. And number two, hair requires an extreme amount of energy every single day because you have 100,000 follicles. Some have 150,000 follicles, and they're all growing at 0.1 millimeters. So like you're growing a lot of output from your scalp. And so the body says, I'm going to conserve my energy, bring it back. Because when you're stressful, now you're out of balance with your energy. Your body has to use that energy to bring you back to balance because you're in fight or flight. And so it's just the expenditure is going in the wrong way, and we want to bring that back. But of course, it can also lead when the cortisol goes high, it leads to an imbalance in your hormones. It also narrows your arteries, and the narrowing of the arteries reduce blood flow to all of the organs or your body parts that are far away from your heart. And if you think about it, your scalp is the furthest away from your heart from a gravity standpoint, right? It has to shoot up all of that, and the arteries are getting narrower and narrower and narrower as we go up. And if cortisol is narrowing them even further, you can just imagine that it's harder for the blood flow and the oxygen and the nutrients to get where they need to go.
Yeah, that's got me thinking. As you're talking there, it stimulated a memory from when I was about maybe 11 or 12. So I got my body hair as a man much younger than everybody else. And so I was about, 11 maybe. And I didn't just get like the snail trail. I got the chest hair and the stomach hair. And I used to be kind of like really embarrassed at school sports because I was, back then, we weren't men yet,
Totally.
and I remember being really embarrassed and people might have teased me and called me a gorilla or whatever. And I was really ashamed about it for years because I was like, oh, this is, girls only want guys with the washboard abs. And I just look like this hairy dude. And I eventually got to a point where I was like, I'm more man than everybody else.
That's beautiful.
But in that memory was me wondering, does it affect, does this stuff affect the nutritional deficiencies and the stress? Does it affect body hair? Because obviously the head hair is the one that we're most focused on because I guess in a social setting, it's how we see each other's face and our presentation and the way that we rock up to work. And, if people's hair is disheveled, you notice, right? And so does it affect the rest of the body, or is there some kind of genetic difference or molecular pathway that means that it only affects head hair?
Yeah, that's a great question, Maddie. I have not done any research on body hair because all of my focus is on head hair and longevity. I will say this, that there's the hair transplant doctors, that the way hair transplant works, and especially for men, right? Because men are good candidates for transplants. Women typically are not, because the female hair loss is more sparse. It's more thinning. It's not complete areas of baldness. And so this was happened to me when I went to the doctor. She goes, you don't have complete areas of baldness yet. So if I inject or try to do transplants, it's going to cause shock loss in the hairs around it. Right. And so you're going to end up losing more hair. And so that's why men are more successful at getting the transplants and women are not so much. But in the hair transplant world and the doctors that are doing this, they're the clever ones, at least. When you run out of enough donor hair on the back, then they start plucking from your chest or from your beard, and they start applying those hair into your scalp, and they start putting it in there, transplanting in there. And the growth cycles are a bit different, but these hairs seem to be resilient, much more so than their normal hair that you have on your scalp. And so for some reason, if you pluck a body hair and you put it in to your scalp, it seems to outlast your natural hair, be that due to stress or be due to hormones or what have you. So we don't know the scientific reasons why body hair may be more resilient, but it appears to be at the surface.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So interesting. Yeah, maybe the body hair serves as more of a protective function than the head hair. I don't know. I'm just spitballing right now.
Yeah, that's a good thought, because let's say what is your body hair doing? It's protecting your core organs, right?
Yeah.
It's protecting your chest, but your heart is right there. It's protecting your liver, the gut. So body, belly, back hair. I mean, it makes sense that it would protect the core organs.
Yeah, interesting. I guess let's look into that.
Totally.
And so were you just talking there too about the difference between men and women? Why do you think women lose it more sparsely, whereas men just seem to lose the whole lot? Is that a result of testosterone volume, or because women obviously have it as well? But
yeah, men. So the number one, the fastest hair loss in men, the most aggressive hair loss in men is between the ages of 18 to 23.
Hmm.
which is when, like your experience or your example, you turn into a man earlier than others. But that's when men are turning, or boys are turning into men, and that's where testosterone is at its highest. That's why men are most aggressive in those ages, because testosterone is just at its peak, right?
Hmm.
And so it's converting a lot into DHT. And my nephew, he's 18, he's struggling. He's like, hey, help me, send me everything you got and then some, right? So that's the age that men get the most aggressive hair loss, because there's just the sheer volume of DHT is very high. For women, just because there's not enough testosterone in their bodies and it's relatively counterbalanced by estrogen, therefore, the effects of the DHT are lesser in women because of those reasons. And it also impacts women, and actually impacts women in the same regions or the same areas that it does men, right around the center part, which is men also lose all of the hair up top. And so it impacts you similarly. Also, women can, over time, if this goes on, you will progressively completely lose the hair follicle. So there is a possibility of you getting bald, but it's just so that it just gets wider. There's not enough power or enough DHT for it to completely wipe out your hair follicles. But it can cause significant thinning, and a lot of women are aware of that and really conscious about it.
Can you get to a place where it's irreversible hair loss?
Yes. Now, there's some good news and bad news. The bad news is that only hormonal hair loss is irreversible at this moment, because it's basically thinning your hair follicles. It's the DHT is thinning it out,
Hmm.
and then the hair follicle becomes quiet. It's quiescent. It doesn't grow hair anymore after a while. That's why men go bald. But all the other types of hair loss that I mentioned, and unfortunately, women experience more types of hair loss than men. For men, about 90% or more of hair loss is DHT related, hormonal related. For women, it's less. It's maybe half to a little bit more than half, according to some experts. And so there's other reasons, like we talked about, stress might be one, thyroid conditions might be another one. We talked about nutrition, like the diets, weight loss. Many of these conditions seem to trigger hair loss in women more so than men. But the good news is that almost all the other types of hair loss are reversible. If you can fix the underlying cause, then all of that hair will grow back instead of it being gone forever, like with the hormonal loss.
Yeah, gotcha. Something you mentioned before that I want to circle back to on the diet stuff was the keto diet, because like often when we think about the keto diet, and if we think about some of the nutrients that you mentioned before, the B12, the iron, and what was the other one? Folate. Was like they're often keto diets are eating lots of meat. There's lots of foods in there that contain those nutrients. So what's going on with people that go keto and find that they have hair thinning?
Yeah. So in the beginning, if you go keto for the first time, which is what I did a few years ago, it was a complete shock to me. I'd never eaten so much fat in my life, and also lost. I think I lost 6 or 7 pounds. Luckily, I didn't have a lot to lose, but people can lose a lot of weight the first time or even subsequent times that they go on keto. So just that losing a ton of weight can be a big shock to the body,
Mhm.
where you can start to experience hair thinning. The other thing, which I don't think the community that you and I partake in lacks for protein in the ketogenic diet. But
Mhm.
that's another reason sometimes that if you're not getting enough protein or enough collagen in your body, that can cause hair thinning. And so those are the two reasons. I've looked into the ketogenic diet, like specifically studies around it, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of data behind ketogenic diet causing hair loss. But anecdotally, you and I have heard of enough people talking about it and saying, well, I went keto and I lost weight. So I don't know that there's a scientific angle behind it,
Mhm.
but anecdotally, it is possibly because their body is going into a little bit of shock. It's like, I don't know what's going on. I'm switching my systems of energy, and therefore something's wrong. So it starts to kind of pull resources from the hair follicle.
Yeah, right. And I've definitely heard of people on various diets sort of having a dip in hair thickness or production, and then it coming back up. So yeah, maybe it's that initial stress, and then there's an adaptation phase to, I guess, how people are moving forward.
Mhm.
So you said there's four ingredients. So tell us about these four ingredients that are in the supplement or the product you've got.
Totally. So we came up with 4 different ways to stimulate hair follicle, which is
Mhm.
why I'm so excited about this, because everybody probably listening that has had hair thinning in the past has probably tried a supplement. that didn't work ultimately, has probably tried a shampoo that didn't work, has probably tried a serum that didn't work. And so what gives? Like, why aren't things working? It's because hair loss is a little bit of a challenging problem, especially in women. There could be multiple reasons for hair thinning. And so what you got to do is you got to get after it in multiple ways. And that's the whole system that we have. We've got a supplement that has about 24 to 26 nutrients. We're changing it a little bit, but it's got a lot of nutrients that help not only balance the hormones in your body, balance your stress, help increase circulation, do all kinds of things on the inside. So we protect and provide some of those resources from the inside. And like we said, the big 4 or 5 vitamins and minerals that are needed are in there as well. So that helps you from the inside. Then we've got a serum that you apply topically on the outside because you want to tackle your hair thinning up here. And so you use the serum to balance your hormones, to provide the nutrition for your hair scalp, fight the DHT, and also help get your scalp to a younger state with some of the anti-aging ingredients in there. Thirdly, we've got a brush that people use every single day. And this is controversial to some because they say, well, I'm losing my hair. I am not going to touch my scalp. I don't want to brush at all, like, because I lose more. But interestingly enough, if you're using the right products, then the brush actually helps because it stimulates your scalp. It turns on and off genes. It also gets rid of some of the oils that you might have in your scalp. It definitely brings more blood flow because when you brush it vigorously, we recommend brushing 200 times vigorously. And so it gets a lot of blood flow there, which blood flow brings oxygen and nutrients to your scalp. And then lastly, we've got a roller, like a derma roller, which men or women might know what it is. And so we roll that on your scalp. It causes tiny micro injuries that help stimulate growth factors and stem cells and a lot of goodness in your scalp that helps heal your scalp, make a younger scalp, but also technically grow hair. The research behind just the roller is it grows 15% hair by itself, but nothing else, which is fantastic, just even doing it by itself. But we pair it together with these 4 powerful ways to stimulate your hair follicles from the inside and outside. And that's why we're getting great results.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And you mentioned like natural. Was it important to you when you created this stuff that they were natural ingredients or natural for the body to consume?
Totally, man. It's been a very interesting journey of just helping or creating and formulating these products. First, we worked with a lot of experts, chemists, and formulators to get this into production. The supplement company always pushes, or the formulators, not the formulators, the manufacturing company always pushes back on us because we're trying to jam so much goodness. They're like, it doesn't fit. I'm like, you have to make it fit. I'm not going to compromise on the ingredients or the quantity, right? The serum, our chemist is always complaining that when we add new ingredients, they're like, but it's going to be oily. And I'm like, it can absolutely not be oily. What the beauty about our serum is that despite all of the powerful ingredients we have in there, it dries off completely the next morning. So when you wake up, it's like you don't have anything in your scalp and your hair, right? So you can style your hair the next day normally, which means you don't have to change your shampoo schedule. And I will tell you, it's not been easy to formulate it this way because a lot of other ingredients we want to add will make it oily. And if it's oily, people are not going to use it.
Yeah.
And so not only is it natural, but it's also where people can use it every single day.
You just, as you just talked about styling hair then, is there shampoos, conditioners, and hair products that contribute to hair loss, like because of toxins or anything like that?
Totally. So what's happening with hair loss is that your hair is fighting or your body's trying to grow hair, but your hair is not cooperating. There's something wrong in that system in the hair follicles. And we've discussed a lot of reasons why things could go wrong. The last thing you want to do is add more stressors onto your scalp, which is what a lot of these chemicals do in the shampoos and beauty products, right? The average woman, I believe, in the United States uses 12 beauty products before she leaves the house. Wow. Now, if there's chemicals in these, if there's parabens, if there's benzoates, if there's phthalates, formaldehyde, what have you, in these ingredients, then you're just putting that on your scalp and your scalp is already struggling. So you're adding more stress to a system that's struggling. So I recommend going completely natural. I also recommend women that are undergoing hair thinning is to just ease up a little bit on the coloring on the bleaching, on the dyeing, because that's another set of chemical and
Yeah.
heat stresses on your scalp. So you want to reduce that as much as possible and just spend 3 to 4 months with a protocol. Like Maddie talks about this on his podcast of how to lose weight. Spend 3 to 4 months getting the right protocol to regrow your hair. And then once you're there, it's going to be much easier to maintain what you have as opposed to trying to grow it back, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think as well, just as you touched on a little bit earlier with the diet stuff, is that I've got this little mantra that I always talk about on the podcast and with clients, which is one tweak a week. And I think the shock that many people have to their bodies when they jump in on day one and they change absolutely everything, is part of this, that big part of that stress. And so I'm big on the idea, which is also beneficial for more long term weight loss anyway, is just making small changes over time rather than shocking the system and then 6 or 8 weeks later saying I can't do this anymore, and you just go back to where you started, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally. And that's why I say our system only takes 2 to 3 months every single day. The supplement's super easy. You take it twice a day and it takes you 10 seconds each, right? The hair brushing will take a couple of minutes because we want you to vigorously brush 200 to 300 times, but you can do it when you're brushing your teeth, for example. It's super quick. And then, like I said, the serum doesn't leave a residue, so it's easy to do. If it helps, you can start using one product per week, as Maddie said. One tweak a week. I love that idea. Add that to your protocol because just use it you got to use this for a few months for it to work, and you got to use it every single day. And so if you need to start small or it helps you to start small, by all means do that. What's really important is the consistency over a few months, not that you went hard for 2 weeks and then you quit on week 4, right?
You're talking my language for us. Absolutely. I'm so big on that kind of idea. So but I think loads of people are going to benefit from hearing this because, hair loss is becoming more and more common with our toxic environments and different type of extreme diets and just the chronic stress that the world experiences in this modern age. But if anybody is listening and they want to know how they can get their hands on your stuff or find your products or just have a chat with you and your team, where do they go?
Totally. Thank you, Maddie. You can go to fullyvital.com to get the hair wellness products, and you can email us. There's links on the website, or support@fullyvital.com if you have questions. I also have a podcast called Anti-Aging Hacks. You can check me out there. And the website there is antiaginghacks.net. And my personal Instagram is @antiaginghacks as well.
Amazing. I'll put all of those links in the show notes below. So, if you're listening, thinking, I need some of this, and I know Maddie, and I know Danny, and I know Karen, then all reliable sources of referrals. So get down to the link, click it, and get into Faraz's stuff. I think, this is going to benefit a lot of people. And I know a few people that it already has benefited. And as well, if you've got a friend or family member or partner that has hair challenges or needs to hear this conversation, please share this episode with them as well. The more people that we can reach, the more people's lives we can improve, and that's kind of the goal of being here. So would appreciate your help there. So to wrap up, what is one piece of health information that you wish more people knew about Faraz?
Before I answer that, Maddie, I forgot to offer your listeners a code. So if you are listening, use the code Maddie15 to get 15% off your order.
Amazing.
So that's for your listeners.
Thanks,
as a gift. You're welcome. And so coming back to your question, what's one piece of advice I would give to people? I think what I've learned over the years, Maddie, is that the human body is super magical, man. It's super magical. It just knows how to heal. And sometimes we get stuck in these loops when you think you're on the wrong path or your body's not working with you, it's working against you. And I've been stuck in that multiple times in my life with hair loss for 15 years. And I will tell you that if you get just a few things right, if you start tweaking a few things, change your mindset and change a few things, to start a new protocol and stick with it, your body is unbelievably magical. It will follow, it will do what you want it to do, and it will be back to full health.
I think that's beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, I hope to have you back here soon, but in the meantime, we'll catch you really soon.
Thank you, Maddie. Thanks for having me on.
See you, man.